Let's get into some of these juicy stories. I am so excited to talk about these. I've been seeing a guy since March. I told him I like him. I want more, but he says he has no time for me. Yet he wants to keep seeing me and won't break it off. Time to let it go and cut it off or let it play out. Sis, you gotta let them go. They always come back. Almost every single time. Hunker down and just be lonely for a season and wait for somebody that's actually willing to give me their time. You will never regret doing that. All right, you guys, welcome to the Talk More with Laura podcast. I am so excited to be spending my Saturday morning with you all. I'm actually recording a couple of episodes this morning because I am traveling to Hawaii and podcast is going to be closed next week for travel. So we're just getting ahead today, and yeah, it's going to be a fun day of catching up and getting into these advice situations, the anonymous advice box that I dropped on my Instagram story. I was so pleasantly surprised by the amount of people that actually wrote their situations in there. I'm so excited to talk about these. And disclaimer, I actually haven't read any of these yet. You're going to get my very genuine response to all of these because I wanted it to be I wanted to read it for the first time and give you my candid advice in the real moment. And I think we're going to break it up into two parts because there's a lot of them. And I was not expecting there to be this many, which is a good problem to have. So I was I think we're just going to break it up into two parts. And I'm going to try my best to get through all of them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all of them. But I'm going to try. And we might even have to do a part 3 at some point. But I'm so excited to just talk about all these things because there's a lot of good stuff in here. And it's a good mix between dating situations, fitness, macros. We're just going to touch all the topics today. But before we get into it, silly goofy thing of the week. It's actually July 5th today. So yesterday was July 4th. And it was a very chill 4th of July. This isn't really silly or goofy. I'm just giving you guys a life update today. But last night was really fun. Tyler and I actually went to Mercado in Wedgwood. They have a rooftop and you can see pretty much every neighborhood city in Nashville. So we got to see downtown, we got to see East, and it was just a really chill, fun night. My dog was surprisingly not super scared of the fireworks. I was like, this is either going to go really bad or really fine. And he was completely fine with fireworks, which is a pleasant surprise. But this whole week is just going to be catching up on work. Before I leave for Hawaii, I'm going to Oahu. Tyler and I are going to be in North Shore. And it's going to be a really fun time. So I'm sure we'll talk more about the trip later on, but I want to get into the meat of the episode because we have a lot to discuss and I'm so excited to get into it. So first things first, I'm going to start nice and easy. A lot of you were asking about birth control. So I'm just going to put this all into one thing because I get a lot of questions about birth control and I am by no means a doctor. So take it as you will, but I'm going to give my 2 cents on birth control and hormones. But someone asked about their birth control and how it messes with their appetite and they're not sure if that's holding them back or, they're having a hard time dropping the extra weight. So birth control, let's talk about it. Birth control is actually, it depends on, I guess, the type that you're on. So birth control can actually affect your moods. It can affect your appetite. It can affect your sleep, your stress. There's a lot of things about birth control that I feel aren't really talked about enough, because a lot of girls are on birth control, and I don't think it's anyone's fault, because doctors can sometimes just slap a band-aid on your symptoms and call it a day. And a lot of times what the pill can do is deplete you from nutrients. So it can make you deficient in things like zinc and different vitamins that are essential for your health. So in my experience, I was actually on the pill for a little bit, a couple years ago. I think like when I was like 21 years old, or maybe even, I think I was like 20. I got on the pill because I was having really bad period cramps, like to the point where I literally couldn't function. And this was before I started lifting. Yeah, I think I was like 20 years old, because I hadn't lifted at this point. I was just doing cardio. And long story short, I ended up getting off of it because my doctor just slapped it on. She was like, you have bad cramps. Let's put you on the pill. And it worked, because it does work, because it helps those symptoms. But in the long term, I felt like I didn't have the ups and downs of a regular menstrual cycle that I kind of missed. I was like, I just don't feel right. I don't feel myself. And I ended up getting off of it, and I'm so glad I did, because I feel so much more in tune with like how I'm feeling in terms of my appetite, or what my body needs, what it doesn't need. And so what I'll say about birth control is, I'm not trying to sway you, but I do think that the best route is to not be on it, because I do think it can affect your ability to drop the extra weight sometimes. I know everybody is different, and sometimes if you're on like the IUD or something and it's not hormonal, I don't know enough about that form of birth control, but I can speak on the pill because I think that's probably the most popular one. And from my experience, it just wasn't serving me. And there's studies that show that if you lift weights, it actually can regulate your hormone balances. So like what I found was, after I started weight training, all of my symptoms went away. Like, yes, I still get cramps. Like my cramps ramp up a lot more now if I'm stressed, and I can tell that there's something kind of off in my body if I'm just not feeling myself. But other than that, I found that overall, I was just operating at my fullest. But yeah, so I think, in my personal opinion, if you are someone that's like not really sure, you're like, I've tried everything, but nothing's working, I would encourage you to consider getting off of it. Because yeah, appetite, emotional well-being, energy levels, skin, confidence, birth control affects it all. And there's no one right choice. And it really just, the best choice to make is one that aligns with you and your lifestyle. But yeah, my 2 cents on it is that I think that the root of your symptoms can be targeted through your diet and your movement and weight training, because a lot of times that can all be fixed by just increasing your metabolism and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on birth control. So if you guys have more questions on that, I would consider honestly just going to like a holistic doctor, or someone that would kind of talk to you about regulating your body to make it its fullest self through just diet. And I don't know how else to say it, but I think that I just am glad. I don't think I'll ever get back on another form of birth control. So yeah, that's my 2 cents, you guys. And let's get into some of these juicy stories. I am so excited to talk about these. Okay. So number 1, someone said, I've been seeing a guy since March. I told him I like him. I want more, but he says he has no time for me. Yet he wants to keep seeing me and won't break it off. Time to let it go and cut it off, or let it play out. I'm always a proponent of timing, and he is probably just not in a place of life where he's going to give you the time that you need. So it's been since March. So it's July now. It's been a few months. I think by now he would probably know if he wants to keep seeing you. And it sounds like he is being straight up and he's saying he doesn't have time. So he's probably nicely trying to be like, this isn't my priority right now. And that is a tough pill to swallow because I'm sure you probably want it to work and you want to keep seeing him, but he just doesn't have the balls to break it off with you. Sis, you got to let him go, because I think that if you are looking for, I guess it just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a guy that's really going to want to pursue you and talk about marriage, it doesn't sound like it's his time. And I think that you are going to save yourself from a lot of heartbreak if you go ahead and walk away right now, because a lot of times what happens is they always come back. So what can happen sometimes is you might say, hey, if you're the bigger person and you are straight up and you're like, I really, I want to keep seeing you, but you're clearly not in a place of life where you're ready for that. So I'm just going to leave this here. I wish you the best. That might hit his ego a little bit. And then a lot of times what will happen is a few months go by and he will hit you up again. Almost every single time that has happened to me. I've been in this situation where a guy has told me the same thing, where he just kind of nicely says like, I'm not ready, or I don't have time, but I want to keep seeing you. Like I'll string you along. So like, I don't want to give you my full attention and my full effort, but like, let's still just like see where this goes. I've definitely been there. I've been in those situations, and it just leads to heartbreak. It leads to disappointment, because you're like, okay, well, I still like want to see him and he's fun to be around. And I think the hardest pill to swallow a lot of times is girls don't want to go through that lonely period of being like, okay, well, it could just be easy right now. I could still see him and like have fun. Or I could be like, you know what, this is what I want, and I'm going to hunker down and just be lonely for a season and wait for somebody that's actually willing to give me their time. You will never regret doing that. Because I had to go through that with Tyler. I had to say no to people, and I had to go through a really hard, lonely time where I was like, no, I did not back down from my standards, and I knew what I wanted. And it definitely was worth it in the end, because yeah, it's just hard to kind of walk away from loneliness, I guess. Like if you know that season is like in your future, it's like hard to embrace that, but I encourage you to embrace it. I know this is kind of a vague one, but I think my advice would to be break it off. And I guess it just depends on what you want during the season of your life. Maybe you're like, well, I don't really care, I'm just having fun. That's fine too. But I think it's always better to stay true to what you want in the end. Like, what are you kind of looking for? Where do you see your life going in the next year or two? Do you want to settle down? If your answer is yes, then I would cut it off, because the guy should be the one knocking on your door, sweeping you off your feet. So that's my advice. Okay, so the next one says, I'm in a job where my supervisor and all my subordinates make more money than I do. It's been really draining because I often end up hand-holding and picking up extra tasks and fall behind, and HR won't negotiate my salary. The really only upside is that I work remote and I get to be at home with my son. I recently received a job offer that pays significantly more, has a positive work environment, and would be a great financial move for my family. I'm torn because I love being home with my son, and part of me feels like I'm failing him if I take a job outside of the home. But I'm also feeling really burnt out in my current role, and I'm not sure how much longer I can keep doing this. What would you do in this situation? So you have a family, you are trying to take care of your son, and you work from home. Working from home is amazing, so I definitely understand that. And it's hard when you are getting underpaid for something where you know that you are worth more than what you're getting paid because you're picking up the slack. I think my advice, I've been in this situation before where I worked a really like low paying job, and they would just like hand me things, and I was working like 70-hour, 80-hour weeks sometimes, getting paid like $45,000 a year, which is absolutely absurd. I guess it depends on your season of life. Cause for me, I was younger, and I was like, I'm just going to keep writing this out because I don't know what else I would be doing. I really had to look inward and be like, what do I want to do in my career? And I knew it wasn't that. And I wrote it out for a little bit because I didn't really know my direction. And I think it's different when you do have a family and you are like, well, I do like these aspects of my job. I did that where I wrote out my pros and my cons. And I think it's always wise to stay in a job for at least a year. My dad always told me, no matter what job you have, just stick with it for a year, because that is going to look good on your resume for your next employer that you stuck with something for a little bit. And you can also speak to that in your next position when you're interviewing, like, hey, I was taking on all these responsibilities with no one was recognizing it, and I was getting severely underpaid, but I stuck with it. So I think there's something to be said about that. And I think God will honor your hard work during a season where you are just not getting paid the amount you're supposed to. And if there's a certain time that goes by, maybe you have a goal in your head where you're like, by, the end of the year, if I'm not getting a higher salary, I'm leaving. I think it's always smart to have a goal in your head of like, give yourself a few weeks or months, whatever that is for you. Be like, if I don't get what I need by this time, it doesn't matter if I don't have a job, like I'm leaving. And I think that a lot of times what happens when you shut a door where you know that you are like, you're not getting paid what you're worth, or you're not getting treated what you're worth. Doors will just start to open to you, because a lot of times, we operate out of fear. Like, oh, I'm so afraid. Like, I don't think I'm going to find another job that is remote and I get paid this amount of money. Like, how am I ever going to find that? That's probably a fear that's going on in your head. And that's fair. I would say if that's your fear, then write out your pros and cons. Write out what you want, give yourself a goal, give yourself a date, and then just see what happens. Because then you give it some time, you talk to HR, and you're like, I'm not getting paid enough, and I'm putting my 2 weeks in. And a lot of times what happens is the company will be like, oh my gosh, we cannot lose you. What amount of money do you need? We will give you anything. And you can shoot high and see what happens. But sometimes they let you go, and praise God, you got out of a position where you were not getting paid your worth. And now it's scary. Yes, maybe you're like, I don't have a job. I don't know what to do. But I promise that like, those are the moments when opportunities start coming to you and you can't explain it. It's just God just worked in your life. So that's what I would say. Pros and cons, make a date. Put your head down, keep working at it, and see what happens. And then I'll just say this job offer that pays a lot more, I would just give it some time. I would write it out in your current role for a little bit. And if you're still really feeling that, I guess my advice to you is to listen to your gut. Because if you are feeling within your soul, like, yeah, maybe you have some external fears about certain things, I wouldn't say no to something because you're afraid. Like fear is always going to be there of like, what if this happens? And, but what if it doesn't happen? I think like if you sit with yourself and you are reflecting on your new position and you're like, oh, it's not ideal. I'm not going to be at home with my family as much. I'm getting paid a lot more though. It's a great positive work environment. Just sleep on it, give it a few weeks maybe. And if you feel really deep down in your soul that you have a lot of peace about this decision to take this next role, do it. Like, listen to your gut, because I think a lot of times you can second guess, like, what's the right decision to make? I don't know. I'm having a hard time deciding. Like, there's all these nice things. I think there's always going to be things about your job that you don't like. There's always going to be little things that you don't like. It's never going to be perfect. I would just say, listen to your gut on this one. Because if you get anxiety about thinking about this new position and you're like, it's really not right, then don't do it. But if you feel like you're scared to take it and there's things that you are scared about, but you feel like this deep, deep sense of just peace, then do it. Don't even question it. That's what I would say. Okay, next one. We are going to talk about macros for a second. We're going to switch gears. I've been tracking macros for a while and tightening up my nutrition, and it's felt amazing. Big emphasis on protein, ensuring I'm getting enough. If I'm hitting my overall macro goals, but my calories aren't as high as they should be, is that okay? I have a meal plan prescribed to me through an RD at work. Macros are on point, but feel like I'm around 300 to 500 calories short routinely. It's a lot. So I'm curious your take. For reference, I'm hitting about 140 grams of protein per day and have always lifted and work out routinely to keep my mentals. I'm tracking macros for a while and tightening up my nutrition. Picking myself protein. I'm getting enough. If I'm hitting my overall macro goals, but calories aren't as high as they should be, is that okay? I guess it just depends on your goal. If I'm understanding your question correctly, it sounds like you're hitting your protein and you feel great, but your calories aren't as high as they should be. I'm curious what your overall goal is. It's okay to be in a calorie deficit if your goal is fat loss. So let's say you've got a good amount of muscle mass on you and you're really trying to shed down your fat and get kind of that more sculpted look, that toned look. I think that a 300 to 500 calorie deficit is fine to do for a short amount of time. I think like a 6 to 8 week long calorie cut can be a really great way to hit your goals. But just go based on how you feel. Like if you feel really good and you're like, I'm hitting my protein, I don't feel fatigued, I don't feel icky, ride it out for a little bit and keep going and just take those progress pictures. But then if you are like, okay, I've been in a calorie deficit for too long, I'm starting to feel a little bit like I can't really hit my workouts as much as I used to. That's when you kind of want to up your calories a little bit. So for reference, like when it comes to macros, if you are in a calorie deficit, you don't want to be in a deficit for too long. If you're in a deficit for like months and months on end, your body is going to start to slowly just eat away at itself and you're not going to be able to perform in the gym. And ultimately, it's just going to ruin your metabolism long term. So you haven't gone too far. If you're like in a deficit and you're afraid of like ruining your metabolism, don't panic. I think that you can always like come back from it. But I think my biggest thing, I guess, for everyone listening is you just don't want to be sitting in that for too long because you want to maintain your your metabolism and the way that your body is operating. So like after a few, like, let's say you're in like a calorie deficit for 2 or 3 months, you can start to slowly increase your calories. So those calories are coming from carbs and fats. So like you just slowly increase. It could be like 50 to 100 calories a week. Like you just add in, a couple other things into your diet. And you're not like completely binging your food and increasing calories all of a sudden. Like you don't need to be afraid of gaining the weight back, because that's not what's going to happen. You just do it slowly, like here and there, just add a few more calories, and then your body will maintain what you've done. If you've dropped a few pounds, if you're like at 150 pounds and you dropped, let's say like 10 pounds from your calorie deficit, great, and you love the way that you look, you won't go back to where you were if you are just slowly, just intuitively eating and increasing your calories by around, like, let's say you're sitting at like 1900 calories and you increase it to like 2200 calories over time, like over a few weeks, and you just sit at that 2200 calorie number. That is great. Like you will maintain what you've built, and you can kind of just sit at that maintenance level. And it's important to kind of know where your maintenance is. Your TDEE is your total daily energy expenditure. So that number is like basically the amount of calories that you would need to eat to maintain what you have. So just kind of gaining a whole understanding of your TDEE, your macro count. And I will be more than happy to help you. I do macro coaching on my other website. So in my bio, you can always inquire to get some more help on this if you need it. Okay. So the next one. Hi, I'm a 24-year-old Christian woman, married, washed up D1 athlete, totally love all things health and wellness lately. I've been toying with the idea of getting into content creation. I've always loved social media and honestly think I have a pretty good eye for editing and making it fun, engaging videos. It's been a minute since I've done it. The thing that holds me back the most is wondering how I'd balance with my faith. I never want being an influencer to get in the way of my relationship with the Lord or become something I idolize. I love to hear how you navigate that balance. How do you create and share content without letting it take over your relationship with God? This is a really good question. Okay, I'll kind of speak to my experience and then I'll bring it back. So in my experience, when I started my account, I didn't really like start it with the intention of becoming like an influencer. It kind of just happened because I was a personal trainer and I just kind of had it there to be present and for people to know my name so I could get more clients. And then it kind of turned into like, oh, my videos are really tracking. They really resonate with some women. I'm going to keep making these videos and see what happens. And so when it got to the point where my account was like, okay, I feel like I'm in a groove of editing. I feel like this is really fun for me. I feel like I'm making a difference. I feel like my message that I'm talking about on social media is really resonating with people. I had that moment where I paused and I was like, okay, am I doing this? Is this going to be my job? I definitely had to take a step back because I had to look inwardly and be like, okay, if this is going to be if I'm going to quit my personal training job to pursue social media and be doing content creation and all of these things, I had to really think about what I wanted my account and my business to be like. And so I did a whole like business kind of strategy with myself where I was like, what's my message? What do I want to talk about? What do I want this to be like? And it's something that I journaled about and prayed about a lot because I was like, well, I don't want, because I think as we all know, social media can be a really awesome thing, but it can also be a really toxic environment. And I was a little bit worried at first that being on social media all the time was going to impact my mental health. I don't think it ever really concerned me that it would take over my relationship with God. because I knew in my core that I knew in my soul that this was my passion and that God like brought me to this moment. I really believe that God, what I felt was like the Lord was like, Lauren, I'm just like blessing you because you've worked so hard and your account has grown and it's resonating with people. Like, and I was scared because I was like, well, I don't want this to take over. I don't want this to be something where I lose myself. And I never got a sense of fear or a sense of you shouldn't be doing this. I just kind of knew that this is what I was supposed to be doing, because I didn't really hear from God like, oh, red flag, don't do this. I didn't get any anxiety in my heart when I toyed with the idea of going into social media full time. I just felt like God was being like, you know what? I trust that you will like use this for a bigger purpose. And so I did. And I think that's what I would say to you is, if you are genuinely really excited about the idea of content creation and you're genuinely like, this is really fun for me, I enjoy doing this, I think that that's awesome. And I think you should do it. I think it's like the motive behind social media that you have to be careful with sometimes. Because I think at the end of the day, God is really just assessing your heart and like what your intentions are behind what you're doing. Because if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, and if you're doing it for attention, or if you're doing it for whatever, that's probably not what you should be doing. But if you're doing it for something that you feel like you're passionate about it, you have something to say, you feel like you want to help people, like, I think that that is such a beautiful thing. And I think that there are moments where you have to check in with yourself constantly. And if there's moments where I'm like, you know what, I need a break and I need to really just be present with like X person right now, or I really need to be doing this instead, I will put my phone away and do that. So I think it's just a constant, like constantly talking to God about it, constantly just like reassessing your heart about it, if that makes sense. So I hope that helps. I think you should go into it. I think you should do it if it's something that's really interesting to you, because social media is the wave of the future. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's a beautiful thing, that it's a tool that brands use to show their product. It's a tool that creators use to make money. It's a tool that we have in our day and age that can be a really beautiful thing. And I think we need more people that are genuine on the internet. So I think that if you feel that way, you should do it and just kind of check in with like your heart and what you're doing, if that makes sense, before you go all into it. Okay, let's go into the next one. It's so hard to find a nice single guy. Yes, it is. I'm 31 and kept my head down for a long time because I was going through school and went into healthcare, where it seems all good men are taken and others just waste your time. Until I met Sam, he seemed so genuinely nice. He never dated around the hospital and I never went after him. Anyway, he left for a fellowship and is coming back soon. I left that hospital and decided I should directly message him. Live on the edge. What do I have to lose? He hasn't ever read my instant message and it's still there after I sent it after a month. So I don't really know. I guess I'll kind of speak to like the advice here, because so first of all, it is really hard to find a nice guy. And I just want to affirm you in that. I think if you are listening to this and you are like, it just seems like there's no one out there for me, I hear you and I see that. I think, so this is where I think it's so awesome that you went ahead and shot your shot and like messaged him. So he still hasn't seen your message. I wouldn't stress about it too much. So this is actually funny. I've definitely done this before. I've like shot my shot with guys. in college, I DM'd this guy that had like 500,000 followers, and I really thought that he was gonna like message me back and be like, yeah, let's get married. Like I've had those irrational thoughts before. And I'm not saying you are, but I think that it's great that you put yourself out there and messaged him. Here's what I have to say about this. It is really hard to find a nice guy, and it's really hard to find a guy that isn't taken, because I feel like because it is. I think a lot of guys are already taken, unfortunately. The men that are out there that are like super great, that you really want, that are awesome, are harder to find, unfortunately. And it's going to require patience and just releasing it to your higher power, whoever that is. It could be God, it could be whatever you believe in. I would encourage you to just embrace it and release it, because it's not going to be until the time is right that this happens. And if this guy is your man and he's coming back, it sounds like he's coming back soon. That's exciting. I think that it's going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. And I know that that's like such an annoying thing, but I think a lot of times the best things require really lonely, hard seasons. And a lot of women don't want to go through those seasons. And it makes sense because it sucks. It sucks to be single, and it sucks to just want something so bad and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to take charge and do everything I can. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, because I've had situations where I've like made the first move, and actually made the first move with my ex-boyfriend, Patrick, and we dated for 4 years. And it was like such a good relationship that I learned so much from. And so I think that you shouldn't be embarrassed. I don't know if you are embarrassed. You didn't say that, but just kind of sit in it and let it all play out the way it's supposed to, and just hang on to your faith of knowing that you will find somebody that you love, and it will be worth the wait. It's always going to be worth the wait, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're just fabricating, and you're in a situation where you're making the first moves all the time, and you're just like want something to work so bad, and not letting there be room for you to release it and just let it all play out. I don't know how else to say that without sounding woo-woo, but I hope that that's encouraging, because I think that you will find it if it's something that you want, but you do have to just kind of keep your head down and stay patient with finding a nice guy, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up, and we're going to do part 2, because there's a lot of other good ones on here that I want to get to. And I hope that this helps, and I will try my best to get to all of them, but I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'm going to try to pick from all of them to touch all the topics. But have a great day, you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Please do not go anywhere and listen to part 2 of your anonymous advice box. If I didn't answer your question, I will try to get to it on the next one. See you guys next time.